Hey y'all, Angela DeJesus with DeJesus Family Farms. Okay, so as promised, I've been reading the book How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger and Gene Stone. So, anyway, Jose is even having me read it to him. So, what I'm doing every night is reading my husband a bedtime story. I'm reading one chapter to him, and we're actually, as I read the chapter and we get some really amazing information, we're stopping and we're having discussions. So it's been great, and we've been using this book like part of our one-on-one time, and just to kind of sew into each other, but at the same time we're educating ourselves. So How Not to Die. So I got through and I took some pretty extensive notes from the preface and the introduction in chapter 1. And what, basically, he lists in here all these different diseases or disorders, and he breaks it down into small chapters. So the table of contents is basically how not to die from chapter 1, heart disease, 2, lung disease, brain disease, digestive cancers, infections, diabetes, high blood pressure, liver diseases, blood cancer, kidney disease, breast cancer, suicidal depression, prostate cancer, Parkinson's disease, iatrogenic diseases. Not quite sure what that is. Got to read it. And then he goes on to talk about his daily dozen and such. All right. So in the book, he starts out with the story. There's a famous situation or a famous story. A lot of y'all may have heard of Dr. Pritikin. Well, there was this woman who had come into Dr. Pritikin's office. She was in a wheelchair. She couldn't walk. She had had so many stents and heart surgeries and stuff. She was like in her early 60s. And basically the doctors had given up on her. So what happened is this lady goes to see Dr. Pritikin. She writes him a letter, gets in to see him, and he sees her. And so let me read to you just basically a little snippet of what it said about her. Frances Greger from North Miami, Florida, arrived in Santa Barbara at one of the Pritikin's early sessions in a wheelchair. Mrs. Greger had had heart disease, angina, and claudication. Her condition was so bad that she could no longer walk without great pain in her chest and her legs. Within 3 weeks, though, she was not only out of her wheelchair, but was walking 10 miles a day. And that was just from following Pritikin. And Pritikin, since that time, because that was like in the 60s. Anyway, even since then, Pritikin and the studies have produced even more information. So Pritikin had come out with just the basics of how food affects our health. And so I encourage everybody to get this book, even if you have to check it out of your library. It is amazing, the things we've learned. Anyway, basically what he's talking about is every disorder that we have, every disease, or majority of them, can first be treated with diet and food. But the thing is that we don't want to give up things. We don't want to give up our dairy. We don't want to give up all of our oil. And we say, oh, well, I'll just eat healthy oils. And we pack our bodies full of coconut oil, for one thing. Olive oil and coconut oil. But what you don't know is that lard, and I want you to look it up. Go look at your labels. Lard or tallow. So lard is pig fat. Tallow is cow fat. That is approximately 47 to 49, somewhere around there, percent saturated fat. Your coconut oil is more like 98% saturated fat. So it's the coconut oil industry. The only thing, coconut oil is excellent. It's great for scrapes. It's great for your skin. You shouldn't be putting in your body because the first thing it does is line your arteries and cause heart disease and obesity. Look at me. I've been sitting here for the last year struggling to lose weight, changing all the oils I use, just using a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of coconut oil. No, I have changed the olive oil and the coconut oil to put it on my hair, my skin, and my feet. Coconut oil is great for removing eye makeup, just let you know. Okay, so he goes into the introduction and he tells about basically just how we got to where we were in the medical industry. It's a very short chapter, but there are some important things I wanted to share with you that he said. The truth is that adhering to just 4 simple, healthy lifestyle factors can have a strong impact on the prevention of chronic diseases. Not smoking, not being obese, getting half an hour of exercise a day, and eating healthier. Defined eating healthier as consuming more fruits, veggies, and whole grains and less meat. Those 4 factors alone were found to account for 78% of chronic disease risk. If you start from scratch and manage to tick off all 4, you may be able to wipe out about 90% of your risk of developing diabetes, more than 80% of your risk of having heart attack, and cut by half your risk of having a stroke, and reduce your overall cancer risk, if more than by a third. For some cancers, like our number 2 cancer killer, colon cancer, up to 71% of cases appear to be preventable through a similar portfolio of simple diet and lifestyle changes. Maybe it's time we stop blaming genetics and focus on more than 70% of what is directly under our control. We have the power. So basically what we put in our mouth. So he goes on, they talk about DNA. All right. So each of our DNA, and he explains it, there's a tiny cap called a telomere, and this keeps your DNA from unraveling and stuff. That's basically what it was. Okay, so basically, you can say it's hereditary. We had heart disease, it's hereditary diabetes. But the thing is if they even did a study where they took twins that were raised by 2 different families, well, the twin who was with the family that had heart disease and had disorders developed those disorders. The twin who was raised in a healthy environment and with a different diet, different culture, totally did not have any of the disorders that this twin had, but genetically they were exactly the same. So he talks about this, and he uses the example about bees. Okay, the queen bee and the worker bees have the same DNA. Okay, but the thing is what they eat, and within the diet or what they consume, and the life of the bees. So, like the worker bees, they consume differently than what the queen bee does. The queen bee outlives most of the worker bees. The worker bees are constantly dying, and new ones are being born, and that kind of thing. And he goes into detail. It's very interesting how he shares about this. And it helps to explain telomeres and how they affect us and how it's really our diet. And we all know that this GMO thing that's coming in, GMOs are actually, they're showing studies now. We're consuming these genetically modified organisms in these pesticides, the dyes you put in your hair, the cosmetics, the shampoo chemicals, all this stuff you're putting on your body actually alters your DNA. Even the GMOs that you're putting in your body. But it says when you eat a plant-based diet, you are actually reversing cellular aging. So when we eat what we should have been eating in the Garden of Eden kind of thing, fruits, vegetables, fruits, nuts, whole grains, herbs, seeds, legumes, all that. When you eat that, that actually reverses aging. But the moment that you incorporate dairy or animal fat or any of that kind of animal proteins in, what happens is it actually reverses the disorder. So, actually, when you consume those things, it actually, any good you've done, it actually reverses that and makes it worse. So, anyway, he was talking about the mortality levels in the United States. And he talks about coronary heart disease. Annual deaths, 375,000. Lung disease, so lung cancer, COPD, or asthma, 296,000. Then he has this one called You'll Be Surprised, 225,000. What that is from doctor mishaps and from medications. Brain diseases, so stroke and Alzheimer's deaths, about 214,000 a year. Digestive cancer. So this includes like colorectal, pancreatic, and esophageal. 106,000 a year. Infections, respiratory and blood, 95,000 a year. Diabetes, 76,000 people a year die from diabetes. High blood pressure, 65,000. Liver disease, 60,000. Blood cancers, 56,000. Kidney disease, 47,000. Breast cancer, 41,000. Suicide, 41,000. Prostate cancer, 28,000. And Parkinson's disease, 25,000. The thing is that all these diseases that are killing us, and they're the top 15. So all these diseases are lifestyle choice diseases. They're lifestyle choice diseases. So they can be changed by lifestyle choices. Okay. So, here's where he talks about the honeybees. So let me give you an example of how striking an effect it can be, the change in DNA. Consider the humble honeybee. Queen bees and worker bees are genetically identical, yet queen bees lay up to 2,000 eggs a day, while worker bees are functionally sterile. Queen bees live up to 3 years. Worker bees may only live 3 weeks. The difference between the two is diet. When the hive's queen is dying, a larva is picked by nurse bees to be fed and secreted substance called royal jelly. When the larvae eats the royal jelly, the enzyme that has been silencing the expression of royal genes is turned off, and a new queen is born. The queen has the exact same genes as any of the workers, but because of what she ate, different genes are expressed, and her life and her lifespan are dramatically altered as a result. And he was given an example of cancer cells use what is called epigenetics against us. So epigenetics is a tumor suppressor. So when we eat dairy is concentrated beef. So basically dairy is like meat protein times 5 as far as the fat content and such. So when we eat dairy, what we're doing is we turn on cancer cell growth. Or when we eat meat, we turn on cancer cell growth. Okay, when we enter animal protein into our body, cancer cell growth. Sugar, processed sugar, cancer cell growth. White flour, which is a form of processed sugar, cancer cell growth. But there are certain things you can take that actually turn it off. So there are a lot of certain compounds that'll do this, but basically what he says in here, like things that are in beans, greens, and berries. Also like green tea. So he even says it actually shows an example. Dripping green tea on colon, esophageal, or prostate cancer cells has been shown to reactivate the genes silenced by the cancer. This hasn't just been demonstrated in a petri dish, though. 3 hours after eating a cup of broccoli sprouts, the enzyme that cancers use to help silence our defense is suppressed in your bloodstream to an extent equal to or greater than chemotherapy, specifically designed for that purpose, without the toxic side effects. So you don't have to do chemo. You just quit eating crap and start eating the stuff that you're supposed to be eating. So anyway, that was just in the introduction. So we got into chapter 1. And in chapter 1, he's talking about how not to die from heart disease. And he goes into basically that heart disease is a choice. And he was talking about like the whole thing about how using that you're supposed to take all these fish oils, omega-3s. But there's actually no proof that actually works. There was one study which they thought it kind of did in some Eskimos. But when they went back and really re-looked at the study and actually put the right controls in, that study was nothing. But the fish oil industry ran with it. And so now everybody's telling us to take the omega-3s because we don't get the right kind of fats or whatever. But if you eat the right proteins in plants, then you don't need all that stuff. You don't have to take all those if you just eat right, you don't have to take all the supplements. I mean, some supplements are needed because our produce that we have nowadays is lacking so much, but you don't have to take all those omega-3s and stuff. But basically, he's talking about how heart disease actually starts in childhood. So what they're doing now is whenever there's an accidental death of a child or anybody, what is done in the autopsy is they're making note of the heart disease. And they're seeing heart disease in children 3 years old. They actually have had some, they're seeing when mothers who have lost their babies before giving birth, when they're able to go and look at the fetus and the developing heart, even in the developing heart, they're able to see heart disease. And in those babies that were seeing heart disease are seeing mothers that are consuming outrageous high-fat diets in enormous amounts of dairy. So he goes into talking about statins, like Lipitor. It's like the #1 selling drug. And it has all these side effects, including like it damages your liver. But the thing is that if you eat the vegetables and the fruits, when you eat a diet that's just fruits and vegetables and nuts, and you don't put oils in it, and you're not including dairy and animal fat, when you eat a meal, that one meal, immediately it starts cleaning your arteries. Actually, heart disease is totally 100% reversible within a few weeks if you go on a clean fat, plant-based diet that does not include fat, dairy, meat, anything like that. And it talks about these endotoxins. So like when you eat, let's say, a sausage and egg McMuffin, that immediately, like for the next 6 hours, these mass endotoxins hit your system and actually start damaging your body. And you just change on plant diet, you have a health change without even, you see changes in your heart, and you don't even have to go through the exercise. You don't have to go through cardio and all that because there's so many people do is they eat all this dairy and they eat all these lean proteins and they have heart disease and they're eating all this stuff and they're working on the treadmill, and they're actually just totally tearing their heart up. All you have to do is put that stuff aside, just eat the whole foods, whole plant-based diet, and it reverses the disorder. No more heart disease, no more COPD. And you can actually reverse aging and heart disease just by what you consume. So basically he's talking about just like this one study that was done on Brazil nuts. And they found out if you ate like 4 Brazil nuts, that for 1 month, it would actually lower cholesterol, show a lower. Now, it won't totally lower your cholesterol if you continue to eat proteins, animal proteins and dairies, but saying that just eating for a month is all you really need, that it actually brings cholesterol levels down. And so Jose's eating 4 Brazil nuts a month now. And because his cholesterol is not high, but it was almost borderline at being high. So, and he talks a lot about the government and how that who is determining what we eat is ran by companies like McDonald's Council on Healthy Lifestyle and Coca-Cola's Beverage Institutes for Health and Wellness. And that one committee member even served as a brand girl for the cake mix maker Duncan Hines. And then another official served as the Crisco brand girl. So, and these are people that are going in and setting up our dietary standards through the USDA, telling us what we should eat as Americans. Basically, they're lobbyists. And the lobbyists are going and saying, you have to eat meat to have protein. No, you don't. Because let me tell you about your body. And this is what I've learned, is that, okay, plants have protein. So about 4 to 6 ounces of broccoli has the same amount of protein as an ounce of steak. But it doesn't cause heart disease. It doesn't cause inflammation. It doesn't have any cholesterol, nothing like that. It's the same amount of protein, okay? Now, you absorb 100% of the protein from the broccoli because it's a vegetable protein. Your body is meant to absorb it. Animal protein, you only absorb a small percentage of that ounce of protein that's there. So, what it is that we eat all this animal protein. The reason they say you got to eat so much protein to get in this amount of protein. Your body does need a minimum amount of protein a day. But if you got that protein from plants, you would absorb 100% of it. If you get that protein from animals, you have to eat 4 or 5 times as much because your body isn't able to absorb it correctly because it's coming from an animal protein. Anyway, he goes into the book and he's talking about, you know, like even Philip Morris for a long time was trying to say what was a healthy cigarette. So, yeah, if you smoke Lucky Strikes, you smoke these are the healthier cigarettes. Well, yeah, we actually fell for that for a long time. I know I did in the 80s. I thought that smoking Benson & Hedges was a healthy cigarette. Yeah, that lasted about... It didn't take me long to figure out that a cigarette was a cigarette, and I got rid of them real quick. I was just doing it to be cool. But anyway, and so Dr. Barnard was saying that he ends the chapter with what Dr. Barnard says. Plant-based diets are the nutritional equivalent of quitting smoking. So if you quit smoking, your body can get oxygen. It starts healing and getting healthy. You start eating a plant-based diet, guess what? You start reversing all your heart disease, your eczema, your inflammation, your mental disorders, ADD, ADHD. We didn't hear about it till we started eating processed food. And now there's a big study, and it's even on the news about all this. They're trying to say, and I think shots and immunizations may play something in this. I'm not an expert, but I'll let you know that now they're finding that the processed dairy, so the dairy that people are consuming, these moms, is directly related to the amount of autism because of how they're processing the dairy. There's a direct relation in what the animals are being given that produce and to cause them to overproduce milk and such. So I'm going to look some more into that because I find that's very interesting. But anyway, I suggest everybody get the book and read along with me. I'm going to do chapter 2 this weekend and hopefully do a video this weekend over chapter 2 about how not to die from lung diseases. And read that, but it's amazing. I encourage you to go to nutritionfacts.org, which is Dr. Greger does a video a day. They're very short. He reads all these medical journals and studies and explains to you exactly what they're saying so that you don't have to, is his motto. And he's amazing. And anyway, I appreciate you going on this journey with me. I am just amazed at what I'm learning. And I'm hoping that I get my Puerto Rican husband on board. And so we're all going to change our life, right? We all got to get healthy. We all have a temple we need to take care of. We can't be homesteaders. We can't take care of farm animals if we're dying and we're killing ourselves by what we eat. So anyway, I appreciate it. Y'all have a blessed day. Bye.